How y'all doing? I'm Aiden Cash, and today we're going to be talking about the crafting system in Ashes of Creation. Let's run the clip.
How do you plan to balance professions to keep them equally useful and relevant at endgame?
When it comes to balancing a system, that's something that we do during testing phases. When it comes to architecting the system itself and identifying the areas in which certain professions excel, where they interact with ancillary systems, their interconnectivity across the artisanship system as a whole, the important part there is to identify how the interconnectivity lives with the other professions in the artisanship system, and what type of reliance you have on particular professions to complete the path of crafting or introduction of new items into the economy.
Touching on balance, balance means a lot of things to a lot of people. But in my mind, in Ashes of Creation, balancing the professions is going to be a careful dance of usefulness and/or necessity weighted against the economic value of each and any given profession. To me, Intrepid Studios has a lot more control over the former than they do the latter. And the nature of that beast has a lot to do with what I think we should refer to as Steven said, the path of crafting. Gathering is the first step in the crafting process, which means that gatherers are going to have the first product to market. That's a big economic advantage. Because nothing has to happen to the things that they produce, they're able to just gather and put those goods onto the market right away, making them the first people in line to get a quick buck. Something to consider about gathering is that it doesn't really come at a hindrance to your exploration. Save for farming and maybe a little bit of fishing and herbalism, you should be able to do all these professions on the fly. If you want to primarily be nomadic and you're really interested in focusing on your adventuring class, gathering professions might be the ones for you to choose. Processing is the second step in the path of crafting. As of right now, I believe we only know about these two processing professions, which are going to be animal husbandry and smelting. Presumably, smelting is going to be taking stuff that you probably mined and turning it into ingots and things to create weapons, armor, etc. Animal husbandry is actually sort of almost a crafting profession in that you're going to be mating animals to create different beasts of burden and mounts and things of that nature. Most interestingly, I think processing is going to be the highly social profession. Because you have to get your goods from gatherers and then deliver your goods to crafters, you're going to be interacting with professions of all types. That's a lot of opportunity to know who has what in their bags, what caravans are going where with what items, who's crafting what for who. A lot of opportunity for espionage there, so be careful around these processors that you're not too familiar with. Crafting is the third step in the process. I suspect that these professions are going to be the most affected by balance. Over time, what's more or less useful is going to be figured out by the player base, and less useful professions might become rarer and rarer. Regardless of all that, I think master crafters are going to be highly desired. They're the part of the process that's actually delivering finished items, which is definitely something that we all want access to. A cool part about crafting too is that I believe items are going to be signed. For example, if you make a chess piece for someone, it'll say created by Joe Chessmaker. To bring it back, this table represents what I think the nature of the beast sort of is. The top row in green is the gathering professions, and underneath them are all the professions that I think they're going to be most closely connected to. Different professions are going to have different amounts of interconnectivity with the others. On top of that, certain professions just have a larger market than others could ever have. Farming goods are likely to be used heavily in at least two trades. Fishing, 3, and I'm being pretty generous with carpentry there. Herbalism, 3. Lumberjacking, 5, but really 6 if smelting requires forges and forges require wood to make fires. Mining is very likely to end up producing for a ton of professions, but right now we have it at 7. Taming could produce some resources that are going to end up in other professions, but as of right now, I think it's primarily just going to be the one at animal husbandry. I made this table to illustrate that while balance isn't unattainable, maneuvering some of these raw goods, processes, and professions into a wide interconnected network is going to be quite a task. Not to mention, at a certain point, it just won't make sense. I have carpentry listed under fishing, kind of jokingly alluding to those little knickknacks where you have the whole fish on a wood slab and he does the little song and dance. But if that's not an item in Ashes of Creation, then I can really only see fishing applying to alchemy and cooking. I don't think you're going to be using fish to make boats or weapons or armor. On the other hand, mining is going to be quite the thing to practice. You're going to need ore to make armor. You're going to need ore to make weapons, siege weapons. You might need ore to make anchor components for boats. The raw materials that make jewels are very likely to come out of things that you mine. Caravans are going to have metal parts, I'm sure. Blacksmithing and mining go hand in hand. Take a look at lumberjacking. Sort of the same deal where wood is going to be an essential part of many things that we're likely going to be able to craft. For example, if a ballista is one of the siege weapons we'll be able to make, sure, the arrowhead will be made of metal, but almost every other part of it's going to be made of wood. Ships, primarily wood. Carpentry is woodwork. Caravans, likely to be made of wood. Blacksmithing doesn't directly use wood all the time, but there are plenty of things that you might be able to use wood for in that craft as well. On the far right there, you've got animal husbandry and taming, which seemingly might be exclusive to each other, and interestingly, seems like it's only a two-step process. I've gone on for a bit, but what's the point of all this? Why did I make a video called The Path of Crafting? The reason is, I wanted to basically talk about the idea that only so much balance can come to this artisan system in a sort of organic way. And so I urge you to think about where exactly on the path of crafting do you want to be? And how does that place intersect with your projections of supply and demand? Once you figured that out, I think you're in a pretty good spot to position yourself for success in Ashes of Creation. That's all I've got for today, so thanks for watching. And if you want to talk about anything Ashes of Creation, don't be afraid to join the Strategic Creation Discord. Link in the description. Peace.